I can tell you that we clearly know about the relation between population activity and movements of the arm, simple things. We know about population activity and understanding the difference between two different visual stimuli or two different auditory stimuli, but we know very little about the perception and the deep understanding of what a stimulus means. Because the nervous system is not about just sensing the environment, it's about generating a concept from this sensation. And about generating concepts, we know very little. The current techniques that we have will not last long enough to be really valuable for patients for many years. But the work that we are doing now on brain-machine interfaces does not come to solve this problem. It comes to prepare ourselves to solve all the problems when the techniques are good enough. For today, we don't have any signal which is good enough, but we keep developing the algorithms to get the best of what we can achieve now. The level of single neurons would give us the best information, more invasive, more problematic. The level of EEG would give us very narrow band, very little information, but can be useful for communication, for many, many aspects. If you want to have an invasive method that works, we need to wait for developments, and I see these developments happen today. So we will have the technologies that will allow us to have thousands of cells, of units, single neurons, in the brain forever. But this is for the future. We induced activity that is abnormal. This kind of abnormal activity does appear in brains of patients. For example, in the case of schizophrenia, you see 40 Hz oscillations like this. We induced activation of this frequency band, very, very narrow band, in a very specific place, on 4 out of 96 electrodes. And these 4 electrodes were always the ones where this activity was initiated. So we know we succeeded to manipulate this in a very, very specific way. We succeeded because this brain knows to produce these oscillations. The issue is, what can we do with it? What does it mean? And it means it holds a very significant meaning for brain-machine interfaces. Today, we have, say, deep brain stimulation. It's an open loop method. You stimulate the basal ganglia, a certain part, wherever you stimulate, and then you relieve some symptoms of Parkinson's. Here we are talking about closed loop, namely you record the activity and you can manipulate the patterns that you see to avoid symptoms like epilepsy. You can detect very early the beginning of epileptic attack and you can reduce it. You can detect schizophrenic attack and reduce it if you can control the neural activity. So the imagination here goes many years forward. I don't know that we can do it in 10 years from now. The most important thing of our finding, I think, is not yet the clinical treatments, but the ability to connect the local field potentials or the generations of this kind of temporal patterns with synchronization of cells, because synchronization is the basis of computation. Once we understand if this is really important for computation, we will be able to move forward. We don't want just to go for the LFP. We want to understand the single unit level. This is my purpose. It's not to understand just the oscillations, but to understand the effect of such conditioning on synchronization of population of cells. The fact that the brain is so dynamic and changing means, and here I'm going to say something which is in debate, okay? So it means that the algorithm that you are using to decode the activity and use it for the neuroprosthetic needs to be adaptive. You can have very smart algorithms, models that know to understand what the brain wants to tell the robotic arm. very quickly. You have a closed loop of feedback from the arm to the activity changes, the algorithm changes, the movement remain very good. By using the robotics with the feedback, we induce changes on the brain activity, which becomes even better for controlling the arm. What we have is embodiment of this device into the neural activity. The main challenge is to have inert electrodes. These electrodes could be nanotechnology electrodes, they could be molecules that go close to the cell, attached to the cell. We could inject these molecules to the brain stream, to the brain, and have thousands of cells. So then the challenge will be the computational algorithms to use all these 1,000 cells. But yes, we can have thousands of cells, use the nanotechnology to do the recording and maybe also stimulation, which is possible. Get rid of all these problems of the connectors and all these problems of wireless. You don't even need all these technologies. You just need molecules that would be able to transmit information outside. I know it's science fiction today, but I also know that in the physics terms, it's possible. Whenever we have new technology, we have malpractice. This is human. It's our responsibility, the scientists, the doctors, the whole population, not to allow malpractice. Einstein invented the theory of relativity, and in his lifetime he experienced being a pacifist and being a person who developed the atomic bomb, basically, or giving the technology. Before he died, he said, "This is the important thing that I can tell you who will follow." 2 weeks before he died. Do the good things, don't do the bad things. He was very, very upset with the atomic bomb. This is exactly the same situation. This is one. Then comes the question of how would humans accept other human beings who have these implants, and there I don't think we have any problem. I think the adaptation of mankind to new technologies is amazing. I guess if we look at the future, people will want to have implants if it works well, and they will admire these technologies. And already now we see that when the people see the movies that you see on the 60 Minutes, etc., they admire this technology. So they are willing to accept it, like to hug it, they get it with love. The only thing is that we have to remember that we should use it only for the good purposes and not for the bad ones.